The purpose of this short video is to show you how to successfully plant what we are calling fast plants. These are rapidly growing plants from the cabbage and mustard family, and what we can do is we can get these plants to do a full life cycle, which means from the seed that we plant today to actually producing their own seeds in about 35 to 40 days. However, these fast plants are oftentimes very delicate plants, and we want to make sure that we are able to plant them in a way that's going to allow them to survive. And so please follow these directions carefully as you plant your own plants. The first thing that you're going to want to do is you need to take the containers that were provided. There's two different size deli containers. One is a little bit deeper without a hole in the bottom. The other one is a bit shallower with a hole cut in the bottom, a little bit hard to see here. There's the hole right there. And you need to take your piece of wicking material. This is going to help pull water into your container. And you want to thread it through the bottom, through the hole that's already provided. So get it in, kind of pull it through. And you want to be able to lay that wick down on the bottom. And so you can hopefully see it. It's stretched all the way across the bottom. You want to make sure it's that way because you want to be able to put the dirt right on top of it. Once you have your wicking material that's going to help pull the water in, the next step is to take some soil. Your teacher should be providing you with some soil that is good for this purpose. You want to take some, don't pack it down, but just loosely take your soil, and you're going to scoop it right on top of your wick. You're going to try to fill up, I would say, 3/4 of the way full. At this point, you can give it a little bit of a shakedown if you see any clusters, kind of move them around. Again, very loosely packed, so we kind of want it nice and deep because it's going to settle down over as time goes on. Now we want to get some fertilizer in there before we even get to our seeds. And so there's a couple things you can do it. Some people use the end of their pencil. Maybe you want to use the end of your finger, perhaps the blunt end of a tweezers. And I want you to poke 7 holes. You're going to poke one right in the middle. And again, I would poke probably halfway through the dirt or so. And then I kind of do one at the top, one at the bottom, and then 2 kind of off to this side, and 2 off to that side as well. And again, if it's easier, you can kind of use your finger if it's easier to get that indentation. The point is, you want 7 holes, and you want those holes to be clearly dug. So I don't know if I zoom in a little bit more, maybe you can see one of those holes there as the focus comes out. A little bit hard to see, but we got one right there. So now that we have these, you can see 4 of them right there, we have these 7 little divots. Now we want to put some of the fertilizer pellets in them. And so you should have a small little tray that looks similar to this. These are the fertilizer pellets, which are much, much bigger than the seeds that we'll see in a minute. So take your fertilizer pellets and put about 2 pellets in each of the holes. You can either use your fingers. If you have trouble grabbing them, you can always use a tweezers instead. But just quickly go through there. If you get an extra one in there, it's not going to be a big problem. But again, shoot for getting 2 in each hole. We want to just brush a little bit more soil over it, but here's the tricky part. You need to remember where your holes are because we're going to try to plant the seeds on top of them. So again, I always put the hole straight up and straight down and then kind of stagger 2 off to the side, 1 in the middle, so I know my approximate place of where those holes are. I would just lightly take some dirt and probably we're looking at maybe a 1/4 inch at most, probably more like 1/8 of an inch. So we're just kind of spreading it around the top. We want to keep a little separation between our seeds and our fertilizer. I'm going to push it around a little bit. So now I can't even tell where my fertilizer was. I'm going to go back and I'm going to kind of guess where my holes were. So I had 1 in the middle, I had 1 up, I had 1 down, I had 2 to the right, 2 to the left. And now it's time to add our seeds into these same holes. Now you want to be careful to only get 1 seed per hole. They're very small seeds, so it's easiest to use the tweezers. These are also very expensive seeds, so if you drop one, please try to find it. There's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So I have 1 in each of the holes. And then one of the final steps is to take a little bit more soil, probably easiest just with your hand again, and sprinkle it on to kind of fill up the holes. By the way, the soil should feel a little damp as you do it. If the soil doesn't feel damp, make sure you check with your teacher. So I'm going to kind of spread it around. Again, this will settle a little bit, so I'm not too afraid of overfilling right now. We want to make sure we have enough dirt in to allow these to survive. And so we have our container that's filled with our fertilizer, our plants, and our dirt. We also, as you can see, the wick is hanging off to the side, which brings us to our last step. You're going to take your larger reservoir and you're going to fill it about 2/3, maybe just a little over 1/2 full of water. Now don't use tap water. Use the water that's provided to you by your teacher. It has a little bit of Miracle-Gro in it. So you're going to fill this up about half full with water maybe to start. You're going to gently set this tray in, kind of nest them together. If I can show you that perhaps. So you should see how it just fits on top. Make sure that your wick is visible and hanging down the side. Occasionally people put it in like this, and obviously that's not going to wick any water up if the wick is trapped in between the sides. So again, make sure it's always straight down, preferably laying across the bottom to kind of maximize the amount of water that's going to flow. And that's really all there is to it. Then you're going to carry that over to the light bank. You're going to make sure you can center it under the lights as well as possible. And for the next 2 days, we actually need to water them. So for the first 2 days, before you bring it over to that light bank, take a little plastic water bottle. It has little holes punctured in the lid. And you're going to basically squirt some of the water on the top, just kind of gently squirting it. And that's going to allow it to allow the dirt to fully get saturated with water. The wicking material doesn't usually work for the first 24 to 48 hours. And so for the day that you plant it, and especially the next day and probably even the third day, you want to kind of self-water to make sure that your dirt remains moist. After that, this little reservoir container should be doing the trick, and all you have to do is every couple days fill up your reservoir half full with water. Make sure you set that back inside, and it should be pretty self-sustaining. Hopefully within a couple days, you'll start to see some plants growing up, and within a couple weeks, you should be getting some flowers.